Hello everyone, welcome to the GOBI webinar series. I see it's 4 o'clock, so I'll kick this off. My name is Christopher Barrio, and I'm the Project Officer for the Global Ocean Biodiversity Initiative, or GOBI for short. GOBI is a partnership of scientific organizations currently supported financially by Germany's International Climate Initiative. The aim of this webinar series is to showcase each of the 6 research areas that are currently being investigated by a number of our partners. This is the 5th webinar so far, so if you have missed any previous webinars, you can view them all on the GOBI YouTube channel, a link to which can be found on the GOBI website. It's well worthwhile. Today, we'll be hearing from our colleagues in Costa Rica, who have made great advances in describing and promoting an important area of ocean off the western coast of Central America, affectionately called the Costa Rica Thermal Dome. I will let our speakers give you the details. This webinar is delivered in English, but we are able to field questions in both English and Spanish. So feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions, which we will address at the end of the presentations. I'll repeat that in Spanish. Buenos días, buenas tardes a todos, dependiendo de dónde nos estén escuchando. Este seminario virtual es uno de 6 transmitidos por GOBI. El seminario se transmite en inglés, pero si alguno de ustedes tiene alguna duda y se sienten más cómodos hablando en español, por favor, no duden en presentar sus preguntas usando el botón Q y A visible abajo de sus pantallas. So, all I have left to do now is to introduce you to our speakers. Please welcome Dr. Jorge Jimenez, Director General of the Marviva Foundation, and his colleague, Catherine Arroyo, our Chief Liaison Officer at Marviva. Don Jorge, Catherine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you and the audience what we have been doing on the issue of the Costa Rica Thermal Dome for the last years. I'm going to be presenting, but Catherine is also going to be jumping in several sections. So we'll start by talking a little bit on the general aspects of the Costa Rica Thermal Dome. And as you know, the Costa Rica Thermal Dome is located in the Eastern Tropical Pacific, right in front of the Central American Isthmus. Next, please. And it's part of an upwelling system. As you know, upwellings are features that occur in the open ocean, and there are usually 2 types. One that is related to the coastal areas and is basically produced by wind factors that push superficial waters and make deeper waters coming up. And there is another type that is produced by currents, and usually it can happen even in the high seas, far away from the coast. We are going to be talking about this later example. In this case, the Costa Rica Thermal Dome is the result of the arrival of the North Equatorial Countercurrent into the Central American Isthmus. So this current is basically a 700 kilometers wide current that moves from the west toward the east, and as it arrives into the Pacific coast of Central America, basically turns north towards Guatemala and Mexico, and by doing so, it produces a vortex that basically pull water from the deeper waters up to 400 meters deep, and this cold, nutrient-rich water goes into the surface of the ocean. The center of this upwelling is located about 350 miles away from the coast. The upwelling itself is a considerable volume. It has about 16 times the flow of the Amazon River flow. So it is a very significant flow of cold, nutrient-rich water reaching the surface of the ocean along the Pacific coast. Next. Basically, what is happening here, and maybe you can see it in this long line, you can see the reach of the North Equatorial Countercurrent approaching the Central American Isthmus. And as it does, it also shallows. So it becomes shallower and shallower as it approaches the Central American Dome. And basically that's a very it's very effective to produce the upwelling system, because basically it makes the cold waters of the deep layers very close to the surface. And so you will have water of less than 20 degrees centigrade down to 15 or 25 meters in depth only. So this is a considerable feature that actually produced the upwelling in this system. Next, please. Okay, the upwelling also has very significant particular aspects. One of them is, like any upwelling, it actually pumps a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus and silicos up to the surface water, but also it does produce a lot of cobalt that is concentrated in the deeper waters in this region. And not only that, but different from other upwelling systems, this upwelling is not based on phytoplankton, but it's based on blue-green algae. And the carbon section that is produced in this area is the responsibility of this blue-green algae that has the largest concentration so far found in any ocean in the world. And interestingly enough, it is very dependent on the existence of this cobalt in the waters. The carbon fixation that occurs in this area is so great that it's basically equivalent to all the emissions of all the vehicle fleets of all the Central American countries. So it's a very significant amount of carbon that is being fixed in this upwelling area. Next, please. And if you can see in the video, this is a very dynamic feature as it occurs in other areas. And you can see the yellow and reddish areas is where the chlorophyll concentration is at the highest. The white line will show you where is the 200 miles limit. And as you can see, the Costa Rica Thermal Dome is mostly in the high seas, but sometimes it extends into the EEZ of all the Central American countries. And we will talk a little bit further about the implications of that. But as you can see, it's a very dynamic, it moves, it changes depending on the season of the year. Next, please. Let's look at this dynamic process in a more segmented manner. And as you can see, the monthly occurrence of in this case of the 20 degrees centigrade thermocline, you will see that it changed a lot throughout the year, reaching its highest extension by August up to November. And the lowest ones at the beginning of the year, when actually the thermocline is closer to the coast. So this dynamic process generates a lot of challenges in terms of not only communicating what this feature is about, but also in terms of potential management options to that area. Next, please. You can see, however, that this is a very persistent process. Even though it changed throughout the year, it's always there. There is always an upwelling, sometimes more shallow than in other months. And in this graph, what you can see is the analysis of where the thermocline was throughout 30 years of analysis. This is from 1980 to 2009. And as you can see, the yellow area here, it shows you where the thermocline occurs in less than 35 meters depth throughout these 30 years. And you can see there that by November, I think, because I can see it here clearly, by December, you have this upwelling more than 26 out of the 30 years in which they was analyzed. And there is a persistence and in the different months also, with different depths of the thermocline occurring. So the point here is that it moves, it changes in extension, but it's always there throughout the years. Next, please. Of course, this is producing a lot of jurisdictional challenges because, well, the core of the dome is in the high seas, but it extends, as I said, into the EC of the other countries. So during certain years, there is a significant upwelling in most of the ECs of the Central American countries, calling for an integrated management of this system within the Central American countries. But at the same time, it extends, or it is centered actually in the high seas beyond the national jurisdictions. So it is in international waters, and it is then subject to whatever regulation it is on the international waters, which presently are not many. And of course, this is something that is calling for not only the need to develop some type of regulations for international waters in terms of biodiversity. It also called for integrated management among the Central American countries in terms of this future. Next, please. This geographical proximity, in one hand, gives you an opportunity because it's actually the Central American countries, the ones that benefit more from the productivity that this upwelling produce in the coastal waters, even though it is 300 miles away from the coast, it has an effect in the socio-economical fabric of all the Central American coastlines, as we will see later on. You can see there that this is basically an ecological unit that is bisected by the 200 nautical miles line. So this is in this case somehow an arbitrary division of ecosystem unity. This is something that necessarily called for the development of some type of hybrid model in which Central American countries and regional organizations will have to combine efforts with world level organizations and other broader regional organizations. But Catherine is going to be talking more about that. At the same time, this is calling for a change in the perspective of how we manage the oceans. Certainly this division on what is high seas and what is EEZ, being arbitrary, poses a lot of challenges in terms of management. There is a lot of connection between these sites like the Costa Rica Thermal Dome and the coastal sites, but not only in the Central American case, but also in areas far away in the Northern Hemisphere and in the Southern Hemisphere, due to the migrations of systems, and also due to the interaction of the water masses with other regions of the planet. You know, like for example, the North Equatorial Countercurrent actually comes from the Pacific Islands all the way to the Central American coast. Next, please. This upwelling, of course, produce high productivity in the region. And you can see that the average biomass of zooplankton shown here in the graphs in terms of millimeters per cubic meter is as high or higher than the equatorial upwelling. So this is very significant productivity coming up in this area. It doubles the primary productivity in the other regions of the Eastern Tropical Pacific. Next, please. So it's not a surprise that there is a lot of other taxa associated with the dome. In this case, you can see the distribution of cetaceans, and the dome is basically a hot spot for cetaceans. So is where you can find 10 species of cetaceans concentrated in this area in the Eastern Tropical Pacific. And some of them are really concentrated there, like the striped dolphin, the common dolphin, or the blue whales that has the highest densities record so far in this spot due to the effect of the upwelling, the productivity, the primary productivity, and the associated zooplankton productivity like krill and other organisms that support a very complex food web in the area. Next. At the same time, and not surprisingly, this is also a fisheries hotspot. And because of all this complexity, and what you are seeing here is the capture of tuna in the Eastern Tropical Pacific. And you can see that the Costa Rica Thermal Dome is right in the center of a really productive tuna fisheries ground. And therefore adds to the complexity of potential management, because basically the fleet of over a dozen of countries not from Central America are coming to fish in these areas. That's something that adds to the complexity and necessarily involves world level or wider organizations to deal with the management of this area. Next, please. Also, the area is very much linked with other regions of the world and with the coastline. Well, this is kind of messy here, but you can see in the lower left, this is the migration patterns of blue whales migrating from the western coast of the US, Oregon and California, all the way down to the Costa Rica Thermal Dome. And this migration is very much defined already, very much studied, and it is highly associated with the blooms of krill that are found in the Costa Rica Thermal Dome. And so the blue whales basically goes down there to reproduce during their early months of the year. This is, of course, not only an ecological linkage, but an economical one, because the blue whales that are migrating between the California, Oregon coast and the Costa Rica Thermal Dome are the same blue whales that are the basis of the blue whale washing industry in California. That is an industry of hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Also, if you can see in the right center of the graph, you can see the tracking of, in this case, silky sharks, and you can see that there is a lot of sharks moving along the coast of Mexico and Central America, and then going towards the dome, basically to feed on the concentration of fauna there. But therefore, there is a linkage between the high seas in the dome and the coastal economies of Central America and Mexico. That's the same for, and if you can look at the lower graph at the right, this is the tracking of billfishes, in this case sailfish. And you can see that even though they do not go into the center of the dome due to the low oxygen concentrations in the water, they do visit the edge of the dome. And this is a hydrodynamic front, of course, in which a lot of fauna is concentrated, and the billfish visit that area. And this is important for us because the sport fishing industry is also a very important industry in Central America, generating hundreds of millions of dollars per year. In the upper right, you will see the tracking of, in this case, of the leatherback turtle. And as you can see, it basically go from the nesting grounds in northern Costa Rica all the way down to Chile in the southern hemisphere. This is a long migratory pattern, and it's very important for us because we have had a 90% reduction in the populations of the leatherback. And this is something that relates the leatherbacks nesting in Costa Rica with the same leatherbacks that are being captured by the fishing fleet in Chile. And that's why we presently has a joint project with the Chilean Fisheries Agency to address these issues. Next, please. Also, there is an important migration that happens in the dome that is not horizontal but vertical, and it relates with the migration of the mesopelagic fishes and the zooplankton during the day. And so this is very important because this is spots on the ocean in where you can find the thermocline so shallow that the mesopelagic fishes that usually lives hundreds of meters deep actually are found during the night at practically at the surface, a dozen of meters from the surface during the night, following the migration of the zooplankton. And that's why it's important, because a lot of this mesopelagic fish is actually being fed by tuna and sharks, and so this is an important connection that we have to realize in the vertical scale. Next, please. The area, of course, has a lot of threats. One of them is navigation. The dome, as you can see in the graph to your left, is basically transected by maritime routes coming and going from the Panama Canal. So about 5% of the world traffic is actually moving through the dome. There is no analysis so far on the routes or the impact that it might have on the concentration of cetaceans, for example, or on the impact that it will produce by the noise generation of these vessels moving through. So this is something that we need to address urgently in the upcoming years. This is something that most likely will involve IMO, and it becomes probably an opportunity to actually manage high seas areas with IMO. This is something that we'll be addressing also with the local regional transportation organizations in Central America. Next. Of course, fishing is the other big threat. It is, as we mentioned, the dome is seated in the middle of this high value tuna fishery ground, and there are fleets from Europe, China, Korea, Spain, US, Mexico, South America coming to this area to capture this high concentration of especially yellowtail tuna, and of course there is incidental capture associated with that. There is entanglement, and there is a lot of bycatch that we'll have to address also in terms of management in the future years. Next, please. During the past years, what we have been doing is basically raising awareness on this issue. So we have had billboards and media outlets talking about the dome, the importance of the dome, because most of the people in the countries of Central America do not know anything about the dome. And most of the decision makers consider this like something that is too far away for them to really get concerned with. So we have been trying to raise awareness on the importance, on the linkages between the dome in the high seas and the local economies in the coastline, and the need to actually start talking about managing this type of high seas areas for the benefit of the coastal communities and coastal activities like sport fishing, like whale washing, like scuba diving, etc., that are very important in the economy of our coast. Thank you. We have also generated a series of technical publications that consolidate the type of information that is so far available on the thermal dome. A lot of oceanographic one, very little in terms of big species distribution, cetaceans, sharks, that type of thing. So there is still plenty of room to work with. There is also a significant vacuum of information in terms of carbon fixation behavior of the dome, which is we know is very important, but we have very little details on that. So this is something that we plan to continue addressing in the sense of capturing and synthesizing all the relevant information about the dome and making that information available in a format that will be usable for decision makers and the general public. And you can see there the linkage in which you can download the PDF of those publications if you want. Next, please. Okay, I'll let then Catherine to address what we have been doing in terms of governance on this area, since she's the one leading that area, and I'll come back later to talk about what the future plans that we have for the dome. Catherine.
Thank you, Jorge. So I'll provide an overview on the work that we have been encouraging from Arriba in order to promote a high seas hybrid governance scheme for the Costa Rica Dome. So Arriba has been leading the...
Sorry to interrupt, Catherine. Could you please switch your camera on?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. So, okay, as I was saying, Arriba has been leading the Costa Rica Dome initiative for over 10 years or even more. Not only supporting scientific research, but also developing policy advocacy actions, looking forward the adoption of a high seas hybrid governance scheme for the Costa Rica Dome. So how we've been doing this? We've been, of course, addressing national authorities, informing and encouraging politics to promote the conservation and the sustainable use of the dome, including the high seas area. Also regionally by means of the CICA, which is the Central American Integration System, and specifically on its technical bodies, such as the CCAD, which I will elaborate on that later, but also by means of the institutional framework and initiatives already in place at the international level in order to create awareness and taking advantage of those initiatives so we can move forward toward our objective. And also, as a cross-cutting activity, we have encouraged awareness by means of different workshops for these different objectives, which include the participation of government officials, but also the private sector, academia, and other NGOs. So the first example of international acknowledgement of the dome relevance is the Hope Spot recognition, which happened in 2013 by means of Marviva's support. And therefore, we have the dome being declared as a special area and critical area for our ocean's health. And also, we have promoted, with the support of the Costa Rican government, the acknowledgement, the declaration of the Papagayo upwelling system as an EBSA, an ecologically and biologically significant marine area. This within the framework of the Convention on Biological Diversity. This took place, it was a process that took place from 2010. Marviva has participated in different workshops in the area. And finally, the declaration took place in 2014. In addition, we have been taking part of the discussions under UNESCO in regards to acknowledging World Heritage Sites in the high seas. So actually, a report by UNESCO and IUCN of 2016 includes the Costa Rica Thermal Dome as a potential site to be protected under the UNESCO Convention. And finally, as part of the High Seas Alliance initiative, in which Marviva is a member, we have been encouraging the Costa Rica Dome as a potential MPA high seas site, looking forward that once the BB&J negotiation be concluded, we would all agree that the Costa Rica Dome will be encouraged as one of those sites to be declared within the context of the or the protection, the scope of the BB&J agreement. We have actually participated in the third IGC in New York in August 2019, in which we had, with GOBI, participated in a side event promoting the initiative and actually presenting the atlas. Then, in a regional perspective, we have been working very closely with the Central American Environment and Development Commission, the CCAD, which is comprised by the environment ministers and other technical bodies specialized, for instance, in marine policy or forestry policy. And with them, we have been able to have an agreement. This is a long-term process. It actually started, as you can see here, there was an agreement in July 2013. However, in 2019, in May, there was a new agreement which confirms the political willingness of all environmental ministers of the region, mainly encouraged by some champions we have already identified, like Costa Rica and Panama and Guatemala. And they have agreed to include the Costa Rica initiative as part of the marine regional agenda. So this means that there is an official mandate to include this as one of the subjects that is going to be addressed by the Commission. But also they have agreed to create a specific work plan, which we are going to elaborate on that in the upcoming slides. And in this process, well, we have also supported at a technical level, providing technical inputs, having meetings with the liaisons of each environmental authority in the region in order to work together and construct this work plan. As you can see here, due to the COVID-19 emergency, we have adapted and been following up with this process by means of virtual sessions. So during the last year, we actually had 2 sessions with the technical marine committee, in which we presented the proposal of the work plan, and had then a second session in which we received some feedback from each government. So what is next? During this semester, Costa Rica is holding the presidents of SICA, which means that the Costa Rica is going to have control of the agenda and the topics that are going to be addressed by each committee. So we look forward that during the next months, there is going to be a meeting of the environmental ministers, in which we're going to have the opportunity to finally make official the work plan that is going to be supporting our work as Marviva with different stakeholders for the next 5 years in regards to the dome. And as I mentioned, as a cross-cutting activity, we have been promoting different workshops addressing, well, presenting the information, the scientific information that has been created and gathered and collected during the last years, receiving feedback from the different stakeholders, regional organizations, NGOs, academia, looking forward, getting the inputs that are going to be required for the upcoming process on creating specific regulations in regards to fisheries and maritime transport as the main threats, which Don Jorge already mentioned, but also on this hybrid governance scheme that we look forward to promote as a model for inspire other MPAs in the high seas. In this process, we have also the participation of other regional institutions and member organizations of the SICA, such as the Regional Fisheries Organization, OSPESCA, and COCATRAM, which is the Regional Commission on Maritime Transport, both of them endorsing and promoting the process of the thermal dome. Now I give the floor to Don Jorge to continue with the second part of the presentation.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, I'm going to be talking about the future plans on DOME, and what Catherine was talking about, the working plan that we have presented to the Ministers of Environment, and that is going to be part of the official agenda of the CCA, the Central American Commission on Environment, for the next 5 years. This is a part of a project that is called Sargadome, which is basically a joint project between the Thermal Dome and the Sargasso Sea that is being financed by the French Fund for Environment that is going to be implemented from the next 5 years with a budget of 3 million euros, both in the Sargasso Sea and in the Costa Rica Thermal Dome, and it will have a lot of joint or common objectives. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the objectives of this project, and which are basically the working plan that the Central American countries are going to be pursuing during the next years. Next one. Okay, we have in this project the assistance of partnership with Duke University Geospatial Ecology Lab that is going to be helping us in a lot of the analysis on marine ecology resource management related with the dome, using some of the geospatial technologies that they mastered, which is beyond our capacity so far. So this is a great addition. We are all going to be also partnering with Global Fishing Watch, using the monitoring capacities that they have capabilities that they have in satellite and radar observation, because one of the big activities that we're going to be dealing with are fishing activities and shipping in terms of use of the ocean space in that area. And of course, the Central American Commission. We also have the assistance, not in the research part, but in the dissemination and communication part of the University of Bretagne in France. So this is something that is going to make a powerful partnership for the development of this project. Next one, Kathy. Okay, and the reviews of the information is, of course, a very important objective. We're gonna have to identify all available information beyond what we have done so far, because we, as I mentioned, we already start with that, but there is certainly a lot of geospatial information that we haven't analyzed and captured. We are gonna use that information to provide minimum elements for the designation of high seas sites, and to inform political strategies, not only for the Central American Commission on Environment, but most likely to IMO and other world level organizations dealing with management of high seas sites. And of course, this information hopefully will support the development of future management measures in that area. That is the objective that we have with this physical, biochemical, and ecological variables analysis. Next. Also, we have a lot of analysis on the socioeconomical data. One of them, of course, is maritime traffic. We are trying to make already agreements with some of the largest maritime commercial companies that do transportation across the site to find out potential measures that can be mutually beneficial for conservation and for the navigation. Also with fishing and tourism, which are very important for the local economies. But as I mentioned, one of the big issues there that we need to further elaborate is the linkages that we have between the dome and the coastal economies in the region. The political sector is usually asking us that, why is that important for us? Why is so important for coastal economies? And we need to develop better information and not only in the amount, seasonality, number of people involved, millions of dollars involved in all of these activities, and how it depends on the dome conservation and proper management. Next. Part of the information is also going to be used in the definition of the boundaries of this, what we call this social ecosystem. As you saw in the previous slides, this is a very dynamic feature that moves and expand and migrate throughout the year and throughout years. And so the definition of how we are going to manage that and how we are going to implement management in this mobile feature is very important, and I think very applicable not only for the Dome but for other regions in the world. So this is going to be something that hopefully will provide information in this type of issues. We are gonna have also, of course, a lot of discussions and analysis and proposals regarding potential management measures for improving sustainability of all the activities that are related to the dome, and that is also a big component of the project, together with the strategies to acquire the missing data, and so point out not only where are the big voids in terms of information, but how we build them up in the next few years. Next. Catherine is going to be talking a little bit more about governance models, but one of the big objective of this project is also the proposal of governance schemes for this ecosystem based on not only the dynamic nature of the feature, but the different jurisdictional issues related with that, the lack of really a legal framework is still to carry out many of the measures or the management measures in the area, and so this is something that is going to be very important involving a lot of workshops and discussions with the sectors to try to identify what are the issues in terms of sustainability, together with a lot of capacity building and knowledge transfer that is going to be a part of an awareness campaigns, technical workshops, discussions with decision makers, etc. Next, please. Okay, at the end, what we are planning to develop in the next 5 years is basically to develop a demonstrative platform in which we're going to be able to generate information looking towards the dynamic data management and the management of dynamic systems. I have to add also, and ecosystem-based features management certainly is going to be one of the big issues there, together with the management of maritime traffic. Those maritime traffic and fisheries are going to be the main area of interest in the upcoming years for us, even though there are many others, but well, we have limited ourselves to those. We are going to be creating interfaces also to provide access to different data sources associated with that, and that is with the University of the Bretagne in France is going to be helping us a lot with the translation of the development of these interfaces to translate data, not only making it available, but also formatting it in a way that managers and decision makers are going to be able to read it and interpret it. And of course, we're going to be developing alternative governance models that Kathy is going to be talking a little bit more about what we're planning to do. Catherine, yours.
Thank you. So yes, to elaborate on the political component of this project, which is focused on agreeing on a hybrid governance model for ecosystem-based management. Our main objective is, of course, to contribute to develop an appropriate governance model for the conservation and sustainable management of the dome in accordance with the United Nations Conventions on Law of the Sea and based on an ecosystem-based approach. So towards that end, we look forward this process to be a science-based process that is going to leverage on the scientific information that is going to be collected during the first years of the process. It is going to be a participatory driven and inclusive process. Of course, government officials are going to be part of it from the very beginning. But we also, of course, look forward engaging with different stakeholders at a regional but also international level, with the support of an already political endorsement statement by means of the CCAD and fisheries and maritime transport regional organizations are also key for this. And all of this looking forward to a hybrid model of governance for the high seas that shall be applicable for the Costa Rica Dome. So the process we foresee to implement will start with the data presentation. Then there's going to be a process of governance analysis in which we are going to review, which is, for instance, the status of the BBNJ negotiation, which were the outcomes, in which way we can lean on that process, which are the gaps, the needs and the means that we must agree or develop or encourage to our governments and international institutions towards our objective. And then there's going to be a participatory process by means of workshops and meetings and other engagement mechanisms in which we can validate, elaborate the regulation proposals, which, as I mentioned before, will be focused on addressing fisheries and maritime transport and agreeing on a hybrid governance scheme to be applicable for the, in this case, for the areas of the dome in the high seas. So basically, this is a summary of what we intend to encourage in the upcoming years with this project. We will proceed with the drafting of proposals. There are going to be a presentation of the outcomes of this process. And finally, we will have hopefully a hybrid model scheme of governance that is going to shall be implemented with the coordination of international organizations such as the IMO or RFMOs, and of course of the most local organizations in charge of these topics. And well, this is a summary in a nutshell what we intend to do from a political perspective in order to bring science to decision making.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Catherine, and that's all for us. Certainly, we'll be glad to entertain questions.
Well, thank you very much, Don Jorge and Catherine. Congratulations on such a thorough presentation. Before I go any further, I would like to remind our audience that should they have any questions, they are more than welcome to type them in using the buttons at the bottom of your screen, either the chat button or the Q&A button. We have some questions submitted already, which I will read out. But if I may be indulged while I have the floor, I would also like to ask one myself, which is, you know, you've presented such an amazing compilation of information, and the diagrams you show, the simplicity of them belies the decades of observations which have gone into creating them. I guess my question is somewhat parallel. In the process of devising your governance scheme and trying to mobilize people in that part of the world, in your part of the world, to get behind it, what is the atmosphere you have encountered, one of cooperation or one of resistance or a mixture of both? How are people receiving?
It is a complex atmosphere because as Catherine mentioned, we started this about 7 years ago. 2013 was our first activity related with the dome. The first thing that we found was total ignorance about the site. Okay, nobody knew. And the ones that knew were the Costa Ricans because of the name, which produced actually a conflictive atmosphere because it was thought to be Costa Rican based, and therefore there was a lot of jealousy by the other countries. Why is Costa Rican if it's in the high seas? And there is a lot of misknowledge by the Costa Rican, thinking that it was a fissure basically centered in the EC of Costa Rica. So it took us several years to actually educate people and to raise awareness of the importance. We were faced with the issue of why is this important to us? Our countries cannot manage the first 12 miles of the ocean, and you're asking us to talk about management of something that is 350 miles away. Why is important for us? And that's why we had to push a lot in along this issue of the socio-ecosystem term that basically is trying to link not only the dynamics of the system from the ecological perspective, but from the socio-economical perspective. I mean, why is this important to us? And we have found that the best way to call the attention of the decision maker has been to talk about the relevance that the system has for the tourism industry along the coastlines, for the fishery industry along the coastlines, and issues like sport fishing, whale washing have been calling the attention and say, okay, well, our dolphins depend on the well-being of the system. Okay, and our whale washing industry that is dozens of millions of dollars per year depends on that. The same with the sport fishing, and that is how we have been able to call the attention, and therefore the willingness of the political leadership in the region. I think, and I have to acknowledge that the discussions in the UN regarding the implementation agreement on the high seas have been also beneficial for the project, in the sense that they start talking about high seas management in the political arena, and that has been something that has been adding up to the interest of managing the dome.
Well, thank you. I mean, progress looks impressive from our end, but obviously there are a lot of feet going very quickly under the water at your end, clearly. Right then, we have, if you don't mind, I'm going to read out some of the questions we received on the chat. David Johnson, my colleague here, asks, Jorge, you mentioned the need to change perception regarding governance. Is this further complicated by extended continental shelf submissions from Central American countries?
Well, actually, the extension of the continental shelf by in this case Costa Rica and Ecuador actually help us in the sense that indicates how arbitrary the 200 miles limit is, and how actually there is connection beyond those 200 miles. And that is basically the argument that we have been trying to sell. I mean, there is connection. There is not a definite limit, the 200 miles, and there is things happening beyond that limit that actually are impacting the economy and communities of the coastal areas in Central America. So in that sense, the extension actually calls for not only a physical extension, but for an extension of the interest of the countries in what is happening beyond the 200 miles. So I think that is helping us out, actually.
Very good. We have a combined question. It's a David Johnson and Henning von Nordheim combo. I will read it out. Have you or others been able to quantify the bycatch from tuna fisheries, and are there discussions and implementations of bycatch mitigation or bycatch prevention measures in place?
Yes, this is a very delicate question, in the sense that the data available for bycatch in the tuna fisheries is centered in the Iatdc Commission. Okay, so whatever we have been able to gather is whatever they want us to have. Okay, so this is an area in which, yes, there have been studies. In 2008, there was a report on bycatch associated with tuna fisheries, and there is significant information, but we believe that is not all the information, and that there is more information about what is actually happening there. This is based on records by observers on board, a system that is implemented by Iatdc, and also there is it's hard to actually get access to the data. We have been trying for several years without luck to actually get access to the data, and the only thing that we can get is publications made by them, but not the raw data.
Okay, thank you. And a related question by our friend Ronan Long, again to do with Iatdc. You mentioned they put observers on their fleets. Ronan asks, has the Iatdc adopted any technical conservation or any other management measures that are specific to the Costa Rica Thermal Dome?
No, so far not. One of our objectives, as I mentioned in the upcoming years, is to get closer to these regional organizations like Iatdc, to IMO, and try to see if we can actually work closer. So far, there is nothing related with the Iatdc measures specifically for the Costa Rica Thermal Dome.
Thank you. And we have another question from David Johnson. He says, excellent news about Sargaddon. Work on scenario planning would seem very relevant to the hypothetical strategies you have highlighted. Would you agree?
Yes, actually, that is part that I didn't really mention it that much, but scenario building is part of the project. We are going to be developing MSP analysis of the dome and trying to build scenarios for different management alternatives. That's very much in the core of the project.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And Henning von Nordheim would like a point of clarification, please. He says, could you please explain or define your term socio-ecosystem, referring to the Costa Rica Thermal Dome?
Yes, this is something that we came up with. It's kind of a weird term, I have to acknowledge. But basically, the idea that we want to is highlight the importance of making the ecosystem analysis with a heavy weight towards the socio-economic aspects of the ecosystem, and not only to the traditional ecological descriptions of the variables and linkages and community structure, but what are the linkages between that ecosystem and the socio-economic aspects of the coastal economies and the world level economy, because we are going to be also analyzing tuna fisheries, for example, which is world level. And so the idea was to emphasize the socio-economical aspect of the analysis.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And now I'm about to read out the last question we have. So anyone else who wants to ask one, you have just a couple of minutes to get one in. So Guillermo Ortuño Crespo, who we all know, hello Guillermo, asks, the 2021-2030 UN Decade of Ocean Science has just commenced. What is the most pressing scientific knowledge gap that you would like the Ocean Decade to address in the region? And he thanks you both for your great presentation.
Well, certainly as we mentioned, we are making an analysis of what are the gaps that we have in terms of information for the region. The scientific knowledge gap is still, let's say, we know where are significant gaps, but it's still very not analyzed in detail. And we, from our perspective at this moment, we think that establishing linkages is one of the significant scientific aspects. We need to understand better, for example, the relevance of the Costa Rica Dome for the economies of California and Oregon, just to give you an example, or the economies of Ecuador in terms of tuna fisheries. But also we think that we have a significant gap there, and is the need to start making management on oceanic dynamic features. We come from a very static management perspective. We set up limits. This is the river, this is the mountain, and whatever is inside, we are going to manage. This type of systems in the ocean come and go, disappear, come up later, 2 years later, they show up again. How we are going to manage that type of dynamic features is is for us a scientific gap, and it's a challenge, and soon the world have to come up with terms with this issue that what we are trying to manage are dynamic, mobile features that needs to be managed, and the excuse that they are too complex or because they are dynamic is not valid. I mean, we need to address that issue.
Mm-hmm. Great. And based on my last prompt, we have one more question for you from, oh, there are more coming in now. Okay, next question is from Ronan Long. Are there any implications for Mexico or to the other Latin American states such as Panama? How wide is the geographical scope?
Yes, that's certainly very important. It is clear for us that when we are talking about the dome, we are not talking about Central America only. I mean, if we are going to be dealing with navigation issues, certainly Panama is going to be involved because most of the traffic that passes through the dome relates to the Panama Canal. And whatever management issues are related to that area are going to be impacting the Panama Canal business somehow. So certainly we have to involve Panama there. Issues like fisheries, for example, we are already aware that a significant proportion of the fisheries, we still don't know how much, but we'll come to that, I mean, it's fished by Mexico fleet. The same with Ecuador. There's the same with even with Venezuela, that is in the Caribbean, but they go through the Panama Canal and fish in the Costa Rica Thermal Dome. So this is not a regional issue. This is a world level issue, and we have, as I mentioned, fleets in China. We have fleets in Korea fishing there, and what is important now is to understand this universe of interactions, not only ecological, not only regional, but world level interactions, economical interactions, so that we can start recommending management options based on solid information. From at this moment, our perspective is that this is not something that pertain only the Central American countries. This is a wider scope.
Great, thank you very much. I hope that answers your question. I'm going to go back to Ronan. We have one question from Henning, but I'm going to ask Ronan's because it's related to what you've just been talking about. What are the comparable oceanographic features to the Costa Rica Thermal Dome in other ocean regions?
Well, the upwelling systems like the Costa Rica Thermal Dome are occurring in areas like Benguela, like Mindanao and the Pacific. Probably the issue that makes the Costa Rica Thermal Dome very distinct is that it is a combination of wind and currents that sustained the system. So when the winds, which are seasonal, disappear, the current is there. So it makes the system very permanent, and that's what I'm trying to say is very comparable to sites like Benguela, like Mindanao, but at the same time it has very distinct features. So I think that what we might learn at the dome will have a lot of application in these other sites. And that's why for us it's very important at the world level, this project.
Great, thank you. And it looks like this is definitely the final question. And it's from Henning von Nordheim again. Thank you, Henning. What type of monitoring on marine mammals or birds is there in place?
Unfortunately, there is none at this moment. We have been doing very small scale monitoring of turtles, sharks. There was a lot of information coming in the early and middle 2000s from different initiatives by the Oregon State University, by some Californian entities, on cetaceans. NOAA used to have this cruise that yearly will take data on sightings and other aspects of the Costa Rica Thermal Dome, but they are no longer making them. So this is one of the big challenges that we have. The monitoring of marine mammals and birds in that area is an expensive endeavor, and we well, certainly we don't have that capacity to do it. We hope that eventually more institutions will get involved in that. We do have monitoring data for fish and cetaceans in that area, but it is becoming old now. You know, it's 2009, 2010. You know, it's over a decade now. Yeah. And no, we are not aware of anything recent in that regard.
Thank you. Great. Well, I think that's everything from our audience. All that's left is for me to thank you and Catherine and our audience for making this, in my opinion, a great webinar. So a big round of applause to you all.
Thank you.
And you know, we, Madviva and GOBI Secretariat will be in touch very soon. So I look forward to seeing you then. All I have left to say to the audience at large is that we have one webinar left in this GOBI webinar series, the 6th one. It will be on Tuesday, the 28th of January at 4 p.m. GMT, London time. And that will be on protecting biodiversity at deep sea hydrothermal vents. So I hope most of you can join us then. So on behalf of all of us here at the GOBI Secretariat, thank you, Madviva, thank you, Don Jorge and Catherine, thank you, our audience, and see you at the next one.
Bye-bye. Thank you all for having us. Bye-bye.